Good evening and welcome to the Tipton Community School Corporation work session this evening. Thank you everyone for coming. Tonight I would like to welcome Carrie Lively to come and speak with us this evening about the Pursuit Institute. Hi, thanks for coming.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Nice to be here spending time with you. I actually am a parent of two Tipton County stepchildren, who one goes to Tri Central, one is now a Tipton High School student. And then we live right on the Tipton Hamilton County line, and I have one at Hamilton Heights. So three kids at three schools. I'm glad to be here. I'm not chasing them around, so it's been fantastic. My name is Carrie Lively. I am the executive director of the Pursuit Institute, which was a initiative in 2021 by Hamilton County to create a career and tech ed district that serves the six public school districts in Hamilton County. And really, the goal behind that was looking at how much of our funding was going to support students in career and tech ed, and how many of those students were actually engaging in career and tech ed and engaging with our local employers. So what we did is we dove into kind of the history of what career and tech ed is in Hamilton County, and we started in 1972. And our relationship was with J. Everett Light, which is the career center that serves just outside of Nora, in Marion County. And at that point in time in 1972, Hamilton County had a population of 55,000 residents.
Wow.
Actually, at that point in time, Cicero was more populous than Fishers was. So in 1972, that relationship worked, where we were sending students to the Career Center to take those courses and to be able to get certifications and job ready. Over the span of 50 years, a lot changed in our community, and what we saw happening was that the Career Center was still doing phenomenal work with our students. They were providing top of the line education and industry credentials. Students were getting phenomenal experiences, but we're only serving about 2% of our population. That is about the average across the state. About 2% of our students are actually served at a brick and mortar career center. And what we'll see is in Hamilton County, we were spending about $2.3 million annually to serve 2% of our students. So what we did is we looked at it from a different lens. How could we be able to offer students a more equitable career and tech ed education opportunity, and be able to reinvest in our local community? And so by reinventing what career and tech ed meant in Hamilton County, we were able to establish the Pursuit Institute. And so in 2021, like I said, the Pursuit Institute was stood up from a grant from the county council and county commissioners for 2 years to be able to go through the process with the state to be established as an individual career and tech ed district. The vision of the Pursuit Institute was to really look at not only the relevant education that our students were wanting and receiving either at the current placement of the Career Center, but also look at our local workforce development pipelines. Getting students engaged to our local workforce and our local economy was the number one priority in terms of getting kids to be able to live, grow, and work in Hamilton County. So we see the vision of the Pursuit Institute as not only an educational initiative, but a workforce and economic development initiative as well. Our goal is to be able to develop sustainable pathways that make education accessible no matter what district or what zip code you live in. We serve about 65,000 students K-12 through those six public school districts in Hamilton County. And a lot of times there is inequity based on where students go to school as to what they have access to from a public education standpoint. So really looking at the core values of what the Pursuit Institute is that we want to keep kids close to home. We know if we can keep kids in our school buildings or in our community, that more kids will access those programs. Students have this perception, if they leave their home school and go to a career center, that they're missing out on being a Tipton Blue Devil, or they're missing out on being a Tri Central Trojan. There's that sense of community that goes along with the high school that you go to. And so a lot of students initially, that's their biggest turnoff. They don't want to leave school. They want to stay in their community. So that was really kind of the goal behind what we're doing at the Pursuit Institute, is trying to keep kids close to home, connecting kids to our local community, and connecting kids to local employers. By doing this, we're increasing revenue. The very first slide said $2.3 million. $2.3 million to serve about 300 students is quite an investment. If we think of $2.3 million over 10 years, we're investing a lot of money into a career center that is not directly serving our community and not serving equitably the number of students that we have to serve. So looking at how we can maintain our local revenue and reinvest in our own school districts and our own programs to help those grow. We're looking at creating partnerships with our employers, so partnerships in avenues or in pipelines where, welding, trades, those types of things are fully established, but also looking at getting our students into hospitals, getting our students into education pipelines, where we're really starting to push back a little bit on what career and tech ed is and what the perception of what it is not. And then funding. I've been blessed over the 2 years that I've been in this position to be able to get about $3.2 million in state and federal funds. And that's not because I'm a fantastic grant writer. It's because what we're doing is pushing the bar, and it's different. And it is accurately assessing the needs that we have as a community, and then getting students into those pipelines and helping our students and our community grow together. So what we've been able to do is we did in 2021 start the process of becoming a career and tech ed district. Why that was important for us in Hamilton County, not only do we send 200 students or 300 students to our career center, we also send about $500,000 in Perkins funding with those students. So the way that the career centers work in Indiana is if you are a career and tech ed district, you are automatically eligible for the Perkins funding, which is a federal funding stream. Each school generates Perkins funds based on their student population. So it's not necessarily related to students that are enrolled in CTE courses. It's related to your student population, so basically Census Bureau data. So I believe Tipton generates about $19,000 in Perkins funds. Every year that $19,000 goes directly to your career and tech ed district. The career and tech ed district then has the opportunity to decide how to invest that money. They can reinvest in Tipton High School and help purchase equipment or curriculum materials to help expand your local programming. But most of the time, that's why the career centers are phenomenal with the state-of-the-art opportunities and equipment and resources. So that was a little bit of a discrepancy. When we're talking $500,000 serving 300 students in Hamilton County, that was one way that we really saw being able to harness that money and push it back into our school districts was a way that we could grow internally and grow those programs. By creating an operational system, I have a team of 3. And what we are doing is we are working side by side with our school districts. I have a deputy director who is essentially working with the boots on the ground at the school to make sure that they are coding courses accurately, making sure that we're getting as much funding from the state as possible to ensure that we're not leaving anything on the table and able to create those sustainable programs. I also have a community engagement coordinator, which is basically like the student experience coordinator, making sure that as we have students in programs, that the expectation that we're selling to students and families is really what's happening. So we're a small team, but we're making it work, and it's working well. We have about 17 different programs that we've launched this year as a full kind of opportunity for all 6 districts. That spans everything from cybersecurity to welding to CCMA to dentistry. I mean, we cover the gamut. So 17 different pathways and programs, and we have in our first year about the same number of students who are going to the Career Center over those 50 years. So we anticipate that, again, the thought of keeping it local, building it in our community, students will come to it. We've seen that come to fruition in our first year. Our goal is that we don't continue to have 75 programs as the Pursuit Institute. My kind of like fuzzy rainbow dream is that if CT is good for kids in my community, it's good for kids in every community. So if we can share those pathways and programs with other communities and they can adapt them and make them work for their students, then all students having equitable access is kind of the goal. We don't want to maintain multiple programs under the Pursuit Institute umbrella. I would like to be able to give those programs to my local schools and let them run, but then again be able to support them in the ways that we've talked. So when Dr. Glaze and I first met, it was really me thanking him for allowing my daughter to transfer mid-semester, and started to talk a little bit more about kind of what I do and what those what kind of the results that we're seeing in Hamilton County. He shared with me a little bit of the data that you have with Tipton County students, and this really was the data that I shared with all 6 of my school boards when they were deciding whether or not to join the Pursuit Institute or stay with our current career center provider. So the information that is specific to Tipton High School, this is from 22-23, and grades 9 through 12, there were 685 students enrolled in CTE coursework. There are 600 or 768 individual enrollments. That means that some students may be enrolled in, for example, a work-based learning course where they're getting 3 credits, or students that are enrolled in maybe a business class and a nutrition and wellness class. So students maybe have multiple CTE enrollments. But at Tipton High School, that also includes your students that are in middle school taking planning for college and careers. So you have about 768 unique enrollments in CTE coursework. 38 of those enrollments are students that are going to John Hines. So that's about 17% of your population of juniors and seniors that are attending John Hines. But the last school year, there were 18 juniors and 20 seniors. 8 of those seniors were in the first year programming at John Hines. So the way that we look at kind of completion and programming for students is that really looking at the junior year kind of being the first year, the senior year being the capstone, where students have credentials and they're able to kind of go into the industry and be able to perform at an entry-level position. So where that falls with money and funds with Tipton Community Schools is that those CTE courses generate $377,000 in funding from the state. Those courses are funded at different wage levels associated with what the local demand might be. So jobs like education are funded at a higher level than jobs like cosmetology. So there's different funding levels based on what courses students are enrolled in. But altogether, those funds are about $377,000. 60% of those funds are retained at Tipton Community Schools. So when we take into consideration those 773 students that are enrolled, you are keeping $227,000 of that funding. $149,000 goes to John Hines to serve those 38 students. So the way that John Hines calculates their per pupil enrollment, and Dr. Glaze, you may have to, this is not how I've experienced, but this is the way that a lot of career centers do. They take your ADM, so your ADM count, the money that you're bringing in for your total student population, and they create a percentage of ADM and basically charge you on that percentage of your whole ADM count of students that would be going to the Career Center. So your total for those 38 students is about $150,000. And then again, John Hines is also retaining 100% of your Perkins funding, which is $19,000 or 5% of the funding. So across comparison, we have students at Tipton High School, as I mentioned, 685 students taking CTE courses that are offered at Tipton High School by Tipton High School teachers on Tipton High School grounds. And there's an investment of $227,000. Based on a per pupil investment, that's about $331.64. What that means is that's the funding that's going back into your classroom. So whether that's to purchase equipment for a biomedical lab, or whether that's to purchase filament for 3D printing for your construction or your engineering labs. That's where that money is being funneled back in to help support those classes. And I didn't change it there. Students at J. Everett Light was where my students were going in Hamilton County, but John Hines, you have 38 students attending John Hines, totaling with the Perkins funding and the per pupil tuition, $168,908. So you're actually investing over $4,000 per student to attend those John Hines courses. Again, this isn't necessarily bringing any information about like John Hines being subpar or any of the career centers not producing great results, but it comes down to kind of the dollars and cents and the investment over time. And if we look kind of without change by 2030, 17%, if we keep that stagnant, that 17% of students every year will attend the Career Center, and 83% of students will every year attend CT coursework at Tipton High School. We'll see that the investment over time, and that's not including any increases in ADM funding, that's not including any increases in CTE reimbursement, it's just stagnant over time for the next 7 years. You'll be investing a little bit over $1.1 million at John Hines for their programs, servicing 333 students in the next 7 years. So this was kind of the slide for my board, my superintendents, that a lot of that last piece with the $1.1 million was, $2, $3, $4 million for some of my districts. And so looking about how can we create programs that not only give students more equitable access, but also how can we retain some of that funding so that we can grow our own. So the role of the CTE district, this is every CTE district across the state, should be working on behalf of each of the school districts to submit CTE appeals. What that means is that if there is a course or a pathway that is funded at a certain level because the state says agriculture across the state should be funded at this moderate level, and we can demonstrate here locally that agriculture is more of a local business driving our economy, we can appeal that funding and receive funding at a higher level. Local school districts can't appeal that funding to the state. That has to go through your CTE district. So that's one thing that your CTE district should be doing, as well as creating those community partnerships and community relations. Licensing management, I oversee all of the workplace specialist licensing, so anyone that's come from industry that is now transitioning into teaching, I help to manage their license with the Department of Education and ensure that they can teach legally and schools receive funding for those coursework. 30A management, like I mentioned, that was really what got our conversation started. My daughter transitioned here about the time that those 30A forms were due to the state. So I can talk about this stuff all day long, and no one else finds it exciting but me, I think. But that's really how we got talking about, oh, did you code it this way? Is this the course you're using? And really that's how we're helping our local school districts to make sure, again, that they're bringing in as much of that CT funding as possible. Because we do receive Perkins funding, the students who push that Perkins funding back out to the schools. So that $500,000 does go directly back to our school districts so that they can use those funds to purchase the equipment and expand the coursework that they have. And then, of course, funding and grants. I'm excited to unveil a Tinker trailer that we will be having, the first of 4, which really focuses on career exploration in grades K through 8. So really focusing on students having the opportunity to authentically engage without, again, leaving their school building, but engage in those industries that are driving our local community. I know that if we just happen to have kids sign up as a junior in one of these programs, that we're not really moving the bar. So the fundraising and grants and those Tinker trailers are going to be unveiled and really designed to help with that expansion. So it's all about opportunities and giving kids equitable access to opportunities. That was one reason why I have 3 kids at 3 schools, is because school districts aren't necessarily a great fit for all kids across the board. And so finding where opportunities lie for students is important. My oldest daughter was a guinea pig in one of our CCMA programs, and so she went through that, passed the CCMA exam, and is now getting placed in a dermatology office. She wants to go on to college. She wants to study nursing. She wants to study something in the healthcare field, whether that's forensics or nursing or whatever that might be. And so what we're really trying to do is push back a little bit on, career and tech ed is if you want to get a job right after high school, and if you don't, then you should take every APIB advanced placement course that we have. And so there's a happy medium. And so what we're trying to do is present opportunities for all kids, no matter what their post-secondary plans are, and really help to ensure that what we're giving them in high school is reinforcing what post-secondary options they have. Not to go to school and pay $50,000 to figure out what they want to do, but really have some opportunities and access to what that career might look like. These are some of the programs that we were able to launch. A lot of these programs are not in a building. So we have some agriculture programs that are housed at Conner Prairie. You can teach environmental science in a standard 4-wall classroom, but when you take a kid to Conner Prairie and they have 1,000 acres and the White River running through it, and you could talk about pollution and environmental factors, that's a different learning experience. And so we are a buildingless career center. We're not going to build a building, because when you build a building, you reach capacity. If we can create programs that we can replicate and put in different school districts, then we can ensure that all students have equitable access, and that's not just the first 30 kids who sign up for the class. So we're continuing to expand programs. We have new programs in aviation, precision ag, vet science. So really looking at what our students' interests are, and again, what our local economic drivers are. So this will be a tattoo somewhere on my body at some point, because this is really kind of my passion. It shouldn't matter what zip code you live in to what you have access to. And determining how we can equitably scale career and tech ed pathways for all students is really the ultimate goal for me. So that was quick, but any questions that you have? I think that the conversation that we've had is just to consider different ways of investing in our students. There are some programs that students are attending at a career center that you're paying hand over fist more than what you're bringing in. And some of those programs can be replicated and offered on site or through shared partnerships. But really to start thinking about maybe how can we engage more students in career and tech ed and ensure that students are getting opportunities that maybe weren't there before.
One of the things that was very important to me was kind of a different approach from really focusing more on dual credit and more on industry certifications, which I think is important. Again, giving kids something to walk away with after they've had this training. Can you explain that a little bit more?
That's my soapbox. You're trying to fire me up.
I know.
So that's something that I'm very passionate as well about. We have, as a state, done a really good job over the last 20 years to tell kids to get any dual credit because it will help you when you go to college, and that's just not the case. When students get dual credit in, we have programs at some of our high schools where they were getting 25 dual credits with Ivy Tech in construction trades. When they went to go to Purdue University and want to major in building and construction management, 0 credits transfer. And so we're doing our students a disservice because 25 credits on a federal financial aid form looks like you've almost got a full year under your belt. So it looks like you only need about 3 years to complete your degree, when in actuality those credits don't transfer to a degree program. What we find is that there's a lot of merit in industry recognized credentials. So for example, my students that are going through dentistry, they're getting the Danby certification. That's not tied to a dual credit, but it's a chairside certification that will allow them to work with patients. If they choose to go to Ivy Tech recognizes the Danby and gives them 5 credits for that course. So it equates to dual credit when students actually enroll into a post-secondary institution. So where we're able to give students the hands-on experience is through certifications like phlebotomy, the Danby certification, a welding certification, where they can actually apply what they're doing in the classroom, earn a certification, and go into the world of work and see what that experience is like. Where when you're getting a certification a lot of time, or a dual credit, a lot of times those don't necessarily equate to you being able to do something in real life. So we are conducting a dual credit analysis across all of our districts to better align what credits are currently offered in our school districts and where those align to degree-seeking programs in the state institutions that we have. And I think that will bring to light a lot of the misconceptions that we've been able to feed for years to our parents and our students, not with a malicious intent, but just not understanding how those dual credits pan out or don't pan out in the future.
And you're going to hear a lot coming out of the legislature about reinventing high school. This is a big thing that is, and basically it's kind of focusing on the 3's: employability, enrollment, and enlistment. And so we really, again, this helps us in a couple of those areas, obviously employability and obviously enrollment in some of these opportunities that we're offering. What is so ironic to me, this is, it was so ironic that Carrie kind of came around, because my whole thought was we've got to do something different here to really provide our kids with the opportunity to get certifications, to get some of those real world opportunities that we may not be getting necessarily, and they get to stay here, which is really important to us. And so, again, it just kind of came about as a really awesome opportunity. And I'm sure not a coincidence, but it was very cool that it all came together. And again, feel free to ask any question. She is like a treasure trove of information when it comes to all.
Let's shock you. I have some questions.
Go for it.
What is a Tinker trailer?
Oh, great. The Tinker trailer is essentially a career exploration trailer. I wish I had a better word to say other than trailer, but essentially we have a a large trailer that's pulled by a truck that's enclosed. It has its own, it's off the grid. So we can park it in a school parking lot, not have to connect to Wi-Fi, not have to connect to power. But inside each of these Tinker trailers are like themes. The first one is technology. So students will be able to go in and the Tinker trailer, work in pods, work in pairs, experience virtual reality, use 3D printers, use all of the technology, and there are different activities based on age and grade level. So students may build a solar array in early elementary, but in high school that might be a little bit more advanced. But really talking about when they are talking about energy and solar power, they can then see Duke Energy plaster on the side of the Tinker trailer as well. We start to make connections about, oh, you like doing this. These are the employers that are looking for people that are skilled or interested in this type of work.
There's a Tinker Coffee Company. I thought maybe it was a.
Oh, that would
You
be
should
nice
get a
too.
sponsor.
I should.
I could connect you with that. The money we send to John Hines, is that money like we're getting from the state that if they stayed here we would get, or is that like?
It comes to us in 30A funds as part of the overall tuition support. So it is a part of the per pupil dollar that we get.
So
from
they're
the
getting
state.
2/3 and we're getting a third,
Right.
Vice versa. Vice
Yeah,
versa.
yeah,
Of the
Correct.
CT.
of the CT. Well,
Well, ADM,
yes,
you
of
explained that.
the
Yes,
30A
you explained that.
funds.
Yes.
Which again is that additional funding that we get for CTE courses. Am I explaining that right? Okay.
I guess my big question is bottom line, like, are we talking about our kids would be in your program instead of John Hines, like replacing the John Hines, or kids would have a choice? What, I didn't catch what.
It's not really a pitch. What I'm doing as the students, it's not necessarily a pitch to try to get more students, but really my goal, because I live in the communities, I want all students to have access to it. So if I can help schools learn how to create these programs and sustain programs for their own districts, I don't make money on students enrolling in programs. Like that's not how we're set up, because that incentivizes, and the goal is not to incentivize and make money off kids. So really, it's just to bring awareness to the opportunity that there's different models out there. I'm happy to share, what some of the programs and opportunities that we have that can be copy and pasted and work in Tipton. But it's really just to bring awareness to, serving 17% of the population at, 40% of CTE funding. Is there a better way to do that? So there's not really a pitch or like an invitation, like let's do this, but just more of an awareness, and I'm happy to help. Again, I'm invested in the community. I have a student that will graduate from here, so I definitely want to make sure that if there's any time, resources, talent that I could offer, that it's put on the table.
Since you mentioned it, does the money work differently? You told us how the John Hines money works. How does the money work if in your program?
So in the programs that we have, each of the pathways are funded at a certain level. So for example, if I use like the CCMA pathway, the way that we build out programs is in the first year, that junior year, students take a series of 3 courses. So those courses are funded at a high wage, high demand level. So this year that's $714 per credit. So $714 times 3 is what that student generates in 30A funds. Those 30A funds go to the school. Typically, those if a student's taking a program outside of their school building, those 30A funds, in addition to additional funds, go to support that program at another brick and mortar building. What we do, because we don't have brick and mortar, a lot of our courses are hybrid courses where students are taking coursework online and then going and doing a hands-on component. That doesn't work with welding, but it does work in things like CCMA or cybersecurity, where students can be taught online. I have worked with my vendors who are licensed teachers through the state of Indiana to be able to offer those courses at a price point that's equal to the price point that the students are bringing in from that 30A funds. So if a student's bringing in $3,000, it costs $3,000 to enroll in cybersecurity. Where if a student's doing cybersecurity at a brick and mortar building, our previous price was $3,750. So for every student, we were losing money hand over fist. So I don't make money on the students, but I ensure that we have partnerships that will recognize the funding so that these programs can be sustainable and can grow. Does that make sense? Okay.
So rather than taking a percentage of the ADM, you're just using the funds that student, we would get from that student in regards to CTE
And paying the vendor, yes.
and paying the vendor.
Mhm.
Whereas before it was like a percentage of the whole
Correct.
ADM.
Maybe just what a student day might look like. Say, you said all districts, so maybe Sheridan, something like that.
Absolutely. It looks very much, we build it to mirror that of a student going to the Career Center. Because, I mean, for 50 years, that's how schedules were built. So most of our students have coursework, academic coursework in the morning. And in the afternoon, they have that block of time where, for example, I have students that are going through a registered apprenticeship in elementary education. And they're taking coursework that is taught by Ball State professors online on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And Tuesday, Thursdays, they're working in their elementary school. What that will do over the course of 2 years, their junior and senior years, equate to a full year at Ball State University out of the way. They graduate in 3 years with one less year of paying college fees, but then also are earning a wage over 5 years, and they earn about $85,000 in wages over the time of that apprenticeship. So what those types of programs do is it makes it more equitable for all students to be able to attend a 4-year institution because they're able to pay off kind of the debts that are associated with it. But our programs vary from 5 days a week students are in class to a combination of 2 days a week and 3 days hands-on, hands-off. So it really is a hybrid model of what works best for our vendor and what works best for our students.
So does that look like a proctor for a class? I mean, if you have for proctor for students all taking the online
Mhm.
test, I mean, I guess I'm just kind of thinking nuts and bolts what that looks like if they're at another institution.
So some of our school districts do have kind of a central location where if you have an online course, you go to the library and someone's there to help. But for example, my daughter came home and took her CCMA classes online on the days that it was provided. Most of our coursework, because it's hybrid, it is synchronous. So students have a live instructor in front of them, and they're able to ask questions and engage. Our instructor has office hours, so if there's extra help needed before and after, it really has changed the way that students are accessing education.
So my question would be, if we decide to apply and join the program, what does that practically look for us? Are all your programs available that you have now available to all of our students in our school, or do we, what is it practically? Do we start with 1 or 2 things that we're offering, or how does?
So right now, all of the schools that are under the Pursuit Institute have access to all of the programming. We do help service some of our private schools or options charter school. They don't necessarily have equitable access to those programs because they're not under the charter of the Pursuit Institute. So, again, I go back to CTE is good for all kids. So if I have a class that's not filled up, of course, let's open the doors and let kids in. So it's not necessarily we can do it however you'd like. Carmel High School started filtering in just a few of the programs for students, where other schools were just floodgates, enroll in any of these classes that you'd like. So there's not really rules which work for me but don't work for a lot of school districts. What do we do now? And so we're kind of fluid in the way that we engage.
Thank you.
So we will find their placement. So a student doesn't necessarily have to know someone. That's another big pet peeve of mine, that it a lot of times depends on who your parents know to what you have access to. So we make sure that we have partnerships that we help place students. But it is local. So we want our local businesses to really see this as a workforce development pipeline. And whether a student leaves high school and comes to work for them directly, or leaves high school and goes off to post-secondary and comes back, they have that connection and that networking happening early.
Maybe this is probably a question more for you, Dr. Blue. Currently, John Hines, they have the CCMA certification, correct? what does that look like for their days? Do they physically leave our building at noon and are there until the afternoon? And then do they have actual placement in place during that time at all?
I don't know absolute specifics, and Craig may be able to answer a little better than I can. But that's what I gather as well. It's essentially 3 hours, either morning or afternoon, where they go to John Hines and their coursework, and then they have to pass the certification. But I'm not sure whether they do a clinical or not.
So
Question, I'm
with,
not
with
sure.
CCMA, there's not a clinical requirement, but with CNA, there is. There's a
Okay.
clinical requirement for that state license. The difference between like CCNA or CCMA is that students, the way we've done high school is that we think of everything in semester and year-long courses, and it doesn't take a year to train a CNA or a CCMA. So what we're doing is we're expediting the certification so that students earn that certification while they're taking concurrent coursework, but they're able to practice with their licensure. So they may be a junior CNA student, but they've gotten their license before the end of their first semester. So second semester, they're still taking coursework in medical terminology or whatever it might be, but they're also working. And so they're learning kind of the application of the material they're learning and able to kind of see, where to navigate in the future.
I see.
We provide transportation now to Hines, right?
Yes, sir.
So what do we do now if, since we're talking about equity, for a student who cannot afford a car and needs to leave here to go to a dental office or something like that? Does that fall to the student? Does that fall to us? My question's around transportation, and is there co-ops for rides? And my son used to give somebody a ride to
Right.
John, can you speak into that at all?
So that is the largest barrier that we have across
Okay.
the state for students being able to access any type of program. A lot of our courses, so the cybersecurity course, I'm sorry, I'm getting my thing. The cybersecurity
Oh,
course that we had is all online, and we find employers that will hire remote workers, and these students have earned their certification. So if a student can't go to the hospital and work in their site in their technology department, we can find employers that will hire students remotely so that transportation barrier is removed. Some of the programs like the education professions, where they can come down to their elementary school or there's a building close by, or there's transportation already moving between buildings and county electric campuses. That makes it a little more equitable, but across the board, that's the biggest issue we have, that not everyone's going to have transportation, not everyone's going to be able to access the new cinema.
Thank you. And then the apprenticeship that I heard you mention in the elementary education, that is a paid apprenticeship. So we, as a school corporation, would be paying that student to walk down to another building and be an apprentice. Is that right?
Correct.
So, okay. And,
Like as a para, under the para deal?
okay. So we incur costs, but we have benefit in that. Okay. All right.
And the goal is that most of the student apprentices are filling roles that are less than full, that you're not adding new roles to serve students in a situation. Also we have students that are also working at the Girls Club and doing their curriculum, working with students in that capacity. We also have students that are working at child care facilities. So there's lots of different avenues to place students. But the goal behind that apprenticeship is that students are earning a wage and filling a role that the corporation or the employer.
And then my final question, I promise. Are you aware of any programs, be they federal or state, that assist your other school corporations in transportation? And by that, I mean grants that would allow us to run local buses between the hospital and, dental facility. Have you ever encountered anything that would help offset that?
So not anything from a federal or statewide perspective.
Okay.
Locally, we have the Hamilton County Express, which is a charter that individuals can support. The problem that we have with scaling that for students is that they don't have enough drivers. So then we have another issue of not being able to fill a certain workforce pipeline. be able to utilize that service. But there's that really is the biggest barrier. We've looked at things like different ride share programs, Uber and Lyft and those types of programs. There's lots of states that utilize those ride share programs, but when you're dealing with students under 18, it's all
No
off.
go.
Don't stop.
No
moving.
go.
So, so yeah, that's the if you can figure that out, like you should just go on the road and make $1 million.
So the state offers, if you're on Medicaid, an app that they'll come and get you, and it's essentially Uber, and then the app is charged to Medicaid. So I was trying to think, is there an opportunity through Encore or a Tipton County Foundation to have something similar? So I was just trying to play something out in my head. So I appreciate that.
Some
Thank
of
you.
our districts still, if they have a large number of students, like I said, going to Conner Prairie, they will still offer transportation
Right.
to Conner Prairie.
Okay.
But a lot of our students are taking the online coursework, and if they're going through a pharmacy class, they're working at the CVS or the hospital closest to their house. So we're able to kind of remove that everyone has to travel 20 miles to get someplace. But that's the number one barrier.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
The cosmetology, I was going to bring up cosmetology. That is a long, and honestly, I had a great conversation with your partner
Okay.
about that, Kurt.
Mhm.
And again, it's really the only place that is geared towards high school students in the world of cosmetology. Other places in Kokomo and other are really post high school students. And so that's a challenge.
And they don't want to flex on that because if you're an adult, you get federal aid to pay for college.
And right.
And the school in Lebanon, all of our so it's slim pickings to be able to get kids into the program. I think last year we're able to find another program, but it was again at a price point of $6,000 per student. So that is not sustainable from the school district to be able to open the doors and say everybody must be a cosmetologist to take this program in the course of health and generating. Well, thank you for your time.
Carrie, thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you. This does kind of come at a time when I know that there's going to be some transition at Hines. And I talked to their superintendent last week at the state superintendent's conference. And so I think as we find out some more information about Hines and how things may be streamlining there a bit, we can obviously take a look at some other options. I think what the Pursuit Institute is offering is going to be the future of CTE. I'll say that with a lot of honesty, and it just feels like it's what we've all been asking for a long time. And so again, I just felt like the board needed to hear about this, what I consider to be a very innovative opportunity, and we will provide some additional information as we carry on here and kind of see what the opportunities are. To become a full-fledged member, we would have to get approval from the governing board of the Pursuit Institute, which is really all of the Hamilton County superintendents. And again, we have a fairly small population. I don't know whether they will be interested in letting us be, a part of the group. But even if they don't, like she mentioned before, if there are spots available and she has room in a class, then we can, instead of sending a kid to Hines for X, Y, and Z, we could allow them to go to the Pursuit Institute for X, Y, and Z.
If I'm following her, financially, we're better off with this program, correct?
Yes. not a lot,
Not a lot. It's not
But some.
huge dollars, but
but the honestly, certifications that kids get,
and the flexibility, the online, the real career. And so, I mean, I like it.
I'm so impressed by the whole thing.
I think the other school superintendents would be interested in Tipton being a part of this from an investment that people have made in agriculture,
agree.
our greenhouse, the fact that we have two of the largest seed companies around, that we might not just be consumers, but producers
Exactly.
of curriculum. So
And I think there's opportunities that come along
Yeah.
with that for their kids, especially Heights, Sheridan, Westfield,
right.
by allowing us to be out there.
And from a safety standpoint, if we can keep our kids in our building that drive every day to Elwood and back, I would, there's a way to avoid that.
I agree. And those are always things that we worry about, particularly when coming up the next few months when things get a little wacky with weather. And so, yeah, and just like what they're talking about with the opportunity for Connor Prairie or something like that. If we had 5 or 6 kids that were going to Connor Prairie, we would figure out a way to get them there, and they didn't have a way to get there. I mean, again, I just think that's we have to create those opportunities for our kids.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks for having her in. That was a great program. Next on our agenda is to review the board agenda. Does anyone have any questions or anything from that agenda? Okay. Then next on our agenda are comments from the community. Just by way of reminder, this is public comment, so we're not going to do a Q&A session tonight, but I can definitely reach out to you if you need more information or if a question needs to be answered. There's a time limit of 3 minutes for each comment. Amber, do you have your timer? Okay, perfect. First on our list is Laura Satan. Hi.
Hi. I'm just freewheeling it this evening.
Okay, see how it goes.
I've been coming to these board meetings for so many years. I've seen an entire board flip, new people come in. I've been there when the other superintendent left and we ushered in a new superintendent. And I say this because, like I talked about, not at the last meeting, but the meeting prior, about certain discipline things that are going on in the school, it is very concerning to me. It's very concerning to a lot of parents. I shared some of those things that have been going on. I honestly feel so sorry for our teachers in the elementary school. I honestly don't know how they do it. And I mention my history of being here a lot from the board because we did have one board member that actually went in to the school, met with the teachers, established a relationship, not just send surveys, how do you think we're doing, this kind of thing, but actually took that step of going in. I've talked to friends who are at other schools and they're like, really, your school board members don't come in and attend staff meetings? Ours do all the time. Or we invite them to come and read to the kids. And so that one school board member did it, but I've not seen it done since then. And that one school board member that did it, ironically, was just elected as our next mayor of the city. So I'm strongly encouraging you to go in to see for yourself what is going on. There's something I don't know if it's the restorative discipline approach that is just not working. I hear a lot about all these referrals are being made, but yet there's no consequences, there's no discipline. Then I talk to parents who've literally pulled their kids out of the school to go to another school and they talk about the difference being night and day. Like if a teacher has an issue and goes, they're backed up by their administration. The kid was suspended. They don't have these issues. I understand there's schools that do have these issues, but it's very concerning to me because our teachers are the legs that we stand on to promote our academics in this school. And I just strongly feel that they deserve for us to have their back and they deserve respect. So I'm throwing it out there and I'm strongly encouraging you all to follow the lead of that one board member that started that, oh my Lord, 6 years ago. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. Okay, next on our list is Ken Amen. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me a few minutes. I don't think I've ever just talked for 3 minutes in my entire life.
Thank you.
You could pass those out.
Yep.
The reason I'm here today, thank you to Mr. Bleach. He gave Mr. Johnson my name. I want to thank you, first of all, for allowing us to continue to have our mentoring program at the middle school. It's really appreciated. I know, gosh, Amber, I guess you've got one on both ends, don't you? I've got a mentor and a student. But just to share real quickly with that, I really love working with the sixth graders. The boys at times can be boys, and the girls are just as sweet as can be, and I love them. So anyway, I appreciate the fact that we get a chance to do that. But Mr. Johnson from the elementary school called me and asked me if I would help recruit some individuals to help with some kind of a program at the elementary school. And so I met with him and his staff and with Rachel Carter, and what you've got in front of you is kind of what we came up with. So he's asked me to recruit from the community individuals that would just simply be able to give a half an hour from 8 to 8:30 any morning of the week, their choice, Monday through Friday, to sit with a student that they are specifically assigned to, and they can pick whether they would rather have a kindergarten student or you know, fourth or fifth grade student, whatever they felt comfortable with. And I wanted to tell him, no, I don't have time, but I didn't. And so I thought, what better place to start than here at the school board. So I'm not particularly asking any of you to join this group, but what I really would love for you to do is to take it back to your churches, to your own communities, to where your social circles are, and share this information with. I have to believe that we have a lot of people that would be willing to give a half an hour every other week to an elementary child that needs some time. I have to share with you, most of you know that my daughter taught first grade for 12 years, and I was sharing with her, she jumped at the chance to do this. And I asked her, I said, what in the world do you talk to a kindergartner about? And she started laughing at me. She goes, are you kidding me? You'll have trouble shutting a kindergartner up. That you won't have any trouble talking to a kindergartner. It'll be the other end of the spectrum. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to share with you and hope that we can get some help from the school board to find people to do this. I've got the contact information for Rachel and myself down there, and the only requirement is a little bit of training and a background check. I'm going to assume that you've all passed your background check since you're on the school board, so that wouldn't be an issue. And hopefully we can make the program work the way that Mr. Johnson really hopes. Since my 3 minutes aren't up yet, I'm going to keep talking. How much time have I got?
4 seconds. Ken.
Okay, well then I'm done. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Clarification, to sit with the student, like while they're in class?
No,
or-
from 8 to 8:30 is their,
It's their community time, yeah.
yeah, it's not called resource time, and
Right.
To be like in their classroom.
no, it'd be individually, you would be separated. So they don't know exactly where they would put us all, but you would
I'm
be,
just anticipating questions. If I tell someone about this and they
Yeah.
ask me, I'm like, I don't know.
The way that I'm not exactly sure what they have in mind, but I know that's during their community circle time.
Yes.
Everybody has community circle
Okay,
first thing in the morning.
okay. I wasn't
yeah.
picturing how this
Yeah.
was going.
and
I'm not
you would be assigned the same student constantly all
Yeah,
the time,
sure.
so that you could build a
Yeah,
relationship.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. With that, we will adjourn the work session, and our regular school board meeting will start in about 5 minutes. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next on our agenda are comments from the community, and we have one. This is Laura Satong.
I wanted to speak about the policy that you're going to be voting on for allowing homeschoolers to participate in sports. And quite honestly, I never gave it much thought because I'm so invested in public school. But I do have a lot of family members that have homeschooled. So when the comment about research was made, I looked at the research, and test scores are awesome. They 15+% better in reading. But besides that, whether or not a child attends here or not and lives within the city limits in the district, their parents still pay taxes, and those taxes still come to our school, like to pay for these lights, to pay for the electricity for the computer, to pay for the lights for a basketball game, for football games. And I just feel that we had a lot of discussion about equity the last segment meeting. In the interest of equity, I can't honestly think of a reason why we wouldn't give them a chance given the small amount of kids. And if it's an issue of, I know at one meeting the concern about is, well, what if they take the spot of a child that is in the school? I just don't know when competition or having to compete for a spot on a team became such a bad connotation to it. And I honestly think in the interest of equity, there should not be a reason why we don't develop the policy. And you write the policy. So you can obviously change the policy. But I honestly don't see a downside to it. And I really honestly think for the last session in the meeting, school's changing and how we're doing it, and homeschooling's exponentially being explored by many parents. And I just feel that it is the right thing to do to afford this opportunity to such a small amount of kids that it would even impact, because parents would have to agree to all the conditions that are put in place that they would have to meet in order to be on the team. But I don't think grades is one of them. 15% plus higher in reading. And my family members that were homeschooled, when they went and took their entrance exams, scored higher than anybody that wasn't homeschooled. So I just think that there's leeway here, to be fair, and you would be setting the standards and you would be setting the expectations. And like any person that's a student here, they would have to meet those expectations or they couldn't be on a team. Their grades were bad, they can't be on a team, right? We monitor kids' grades all the time here, and if they fall below a certain level, they can't be on a team. So, thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, next on our agenda is the consent agenda items. We will approve this tonight, the approval of the agenda, the approval of minutes from the special board meeting November 27th, the approval of claims for payroll on November 13th and 24th and December 8th, the accounts payable claims on December 12th, the approval of the personnel report in December, the approval of field trips, which includes the senior trip to Washington, D.C. and New York City, which will take place on April 25th through the 30th. Also, the approval to accept donations from IU Health for the AED grant of $2,000, Kemp United Methodist Church to special education for $100, a donation to My Closet. Donations were received from August to November 30th, totaling $19,555. We received a donation to the Charitable Lunch Fund. Those donations were from August 1st to November 30th, totaling $3,005. An anonymous donation to the Friends of the Inferno for $48.25, and a Black Giving Fund to the Gilman Classroom for $100. And lastly, the David Hopkins to the GSA Scholarship Fund of $500. And I just want to say thank you so much to our donors for those programs and opportunities. We greatly appreciate that. But we need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The personnel report for December 12th. We do not have anything in certified or classified staff. In the ECA staff, the resignations of Miranda Sylvia as the 7th grade girls basketball coach and Brittany McLaren as the swimming coach assistant in the middle school. Recommendations are Lindsay Cole and Missy Stone as Builders Club co-sponsors, and then Carrie Capshaw, Beth Craner, and Phil Morgan as junior class sponsors, Beth Craner and Daniel Adams as senior class sponsors, and Matthew Riley as a 6th grade boys basketball coach, Miranda Sylvia as the 7th grade girls basketball coach, and Autumn Ringeisen as the 6th grade girls basketball coach. Okay. Next on our agenda is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I wanted to once again reiterate our happiness with the U.S. News and World Report rankings of our elementary school in the top 6 elementary schools state. I did also want to share the ranking of our middle school, which was in the top 20%, and then the ranking of our high school that was ranked in the 53rd percent. So a couple of really quick things. I want to make sure that we're, this was not a great data year for us, and the fact that we ended up doing as well again is great from a third party that is kind of looking at the view from 20,000 feet. So that's always a good thing, and I'm excited to see what it's going to look like in the future as our data continues to improve. I would say that with our high school, one of the things that really does impact us is we have more of an exposure for our kids to ACP dual credit, which would be part of the Indiana College Core, versus an AP. The way that their matrix works really relies heavily on the number of students who take an AP exam and then the number of students that pass. So, but again, there are other things that can be factored in there. The graduation rate we know is far better this coming year than what is in this year's data. So once again, it's kind of nice to be recognized from a third party. Again, this is not something that we have over or any kind of influence over. But again, it's just kind of nice and a good shot in the arm for our teachers who are working incredibly hard and doing the work every single day. We do want to do a special celebration for our elementary teachers. We're going to wait in January because there's a lot of celebrating going on right now in our elementary school, and we thought maybe January do some type of celebration. I also want to thank Rob. He forwarded one of what we sent out on Facebook and hashtag Public Schools Matter. Anytime we send something out, we should use that hashtag because honestly, public schools matter, period. And we need to make sure that everybody knows that. And if we're not out here preaching it, I guarantee nobody else is. So again, it was a great reminder for me. So thank you, Rob, to do that. And that's just something that needs to be a hashtag right along with Blue Future or Tipton Pride, because again, public schools are what make these great things happen.
Sure. That is very important for the ISBA because those metrics and what we're reporting is what they're taking to the legislators to show the kind of engagement around it. So my involvement in the legislative subcommittee, all of a sudden it started to click that if we can get everybody in the community, even if you're sitting at a basketball game and
Exactly.
recognize a student,
Yep.
like Nolan Swan, who just
Exactly.
went bonkers over the weekend.
Right.
You know, and we can put Public Schools Matter
Absolutely.
or our public schools work.
Yes.
Those two. That really helps us come legislative time to have some weight with Buck and Vanetta and
Absolutely.
but that I shouldn't call people out. To be able to protect our funding and do that kind of stuff. So
Absolutely.
that is for people that are in the audience. If
Yeah.
we can do that, in our marketing effort, it is helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I did want to talk a little bit about Tipton Municipal Utilities. First of all, on Aquafresh, and also the Tipton City Council. As you are aware, board, a few weeks ago we did get some shocking news that our electric rates were going to change significantly through a lot of work that I know Rob was involved in and Jen was involved in, as well as Jim and Don, and also their consultants. We were able to work with the city, and they were able to help us to navigate a little bit of this increase. And once again, what's happening is the school corporation is changing to a primary power rate D's classification, which overall actually reduces our electrical rate, except we would now have to do a maximum load charge, which is quite expensive. The cost per kilovolt amp down there is really what the cost will be when we are at that maximum load range. And so that might mean it really just kind of depends on the way I understand it, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. It's not like saying from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, this is the maximum load time. For us, it could be from 6 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. or something to that effect. But anyway, it does significantly increase what we are charged. So thankfully, the city council voted last night to approve a phased-in approach to help us ease into this just a little bit. So a little over 10% increase each year over 3 years. And we certainly appreciate their willingness to work with us and willingness to help us out. I mean, our budgets are already fixed for the next year, and again, just giving us an opportunity to plan was just exceptional. One other thing that I want to mention is we are working with Verigy, who is our solar field vendor, and so we're providing them with our 15-minute interval report for the entire year. I got that yesterday from Jim. And so they have that. They're also going to be looking at our bills for gas and electricity, and then also our square footage. And what they're going to do is they're going to be able to go back and monitor how we can keep the school from that maximum load charge as much as possible. In some ways, it may be unavoidable, but if there's other ways that we can implement some of the things like just turning on the boilers, starting the HVAC systems in more of a staggered process over a 15-minute interval, those kind of things will make a difference. So they're going to take all that data, and then they will provide us with a report here in the next couple of months on how we can get some short-term solutions, and then they will also provide some long-term solutions. Particularly, our solar field is great when the sun's shining. It's not, but maybe looking at there are some school corporations in Indiana who do have batteries to store some of that extra energy. It's expensive, but it may be something that we should look at. So again, there's all kinds of opportunities out there that working with a company like that's international, that can provide us with some information. So when I get more information, I'll be glad to forward that on. This is not an area that I understand in any way, shape, or form. So just want to put that out there, and that way we can all together, because it's going to be, it's something that's necessary, something that we need to do. And again, we're just appreciative of everybody working with us. And again, it's kind of the typical Tipton thing. Everybody just kind of hops in and takes care of each other. Yes.
Solar field predates me, so.
Okay.
If we could get more information on that, I don't wanna.
Sure.
Like, that's our solar field.
Yes.
So when it went into use, did that make a difference? Like, our utilities went down at that time? Is that helping us in some way?
It is helping us. I don't know exactly how much it's gone down because again, when we are, when the sun's shining,
Right.
this pretty much powers us.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, I would have to, and Verigy has all of that.
Right, we'll get the data from them.
Yes, and I'll be glad to share that because it predates me too. So
I know, like, I had neighbors that had it, and when
Yeah.
it was sunny enough, not only did it power their home, they were able to sell it back to the grid.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're on
Yeah.
that program. Or,
I don't think we can sell it to the grid,
Well,
if I'm not mistaken.
you can get refunds or discounts
We do get those.
through over hours.
I say sell it back, but whatever, however that looks.
Yeah. We get some kind of a credit statement about once a year from our utility. Yields. We'll get that information to you.
Okay.
I can learn a lot about that too. I don't, it's just
Predates
been-
both of us.
Exactly. So, but yeah, good information. I did want to, again, I love this picture, and Rob actually took this picture, and I do love this picture because it shows all of our kids that are involved in our vocal music program, and I just think that is a mind-boggling number, especially for our site school. So again, congratulations to our choir on an exceptional concert, and it was a concert that I had to miss for some personal reasons, and I hated to miss it, but I was certainly glad to see how well it was attended and seeing all these kids active in our program. Again, our band program, the next night had their event, and that just went extremely well. Again, another big crowd, another great opportunity to showcase our students. We do have some information to share on student attendance, and I'm not going to steal the glam here from Mr. Jaworski. He's going to give you a report on it. But I did want to take the opportunity to thank our administrators for their great effort in making some of these things that he's going to talk about a little bit later happen. Also, just we it's kind of the time of year where we get a lot of reports. We did get a 100% compliant report for 2023, which means we're hitting all of our deadlines from Indiana IEP, which that's always a great thing. And then the other one that has been an issue with least restrictive environment in Tipton in the past, we've actually hit the threshold, and we're actually doing as we should with the number of students that we have in the least restrictive environment. So again, good news there. I think the best thing we've done all year, and this was an organic idea, was the Blue Devil Fridays, and I just love them. And I love to see the kids out there, and I love to see the elementary kids as they walk in and see these high school students from all different kinds of organizations doing their thing. And the kids are just great. The high school kids are just great. Great mentors, just awesome experience. And again, the best part about it is just watching the elementary kids are so excited. It's such a neat thing. And again, an organic, kind of a grassroots idea that took shape and has become a thing. So anyway, good stuff. We're having a great year in basketball. For our boys, our girls are struggling, but once again, whether you have a winning record or whatever, the one thing that matters the most is the way that our kids represent us on the floor. And so these were all exemplary behavior reports that our girls and our boys basketball teams received. Again, we are so fortunate to have great kids, and they just represent us so well and just so professional and so great. So we're just incredibly fortunate to have outside people recognize our kids. I do want to talk about our boys basketball team. Nolan Swan with the MVP over the on Saturday night. I'm from the Muncie area, so it was really awesome to be in the field house and win. Because when I was in high school, we never did, and so it was very very exciting, and it was a wonderful game against a very very tough Delta team. So once again, Nolan just was crazy from the foul line, and just I mean he just did a great job. So anyway, wanted to highlight that and to talk about how again what a great year they're having, and then just recognize Nolan for what he did. Middle school building project. It's coming together, guys. It's been amazing to see what's happened in the last really week and a half. These are the boys' visitor locker rooms. These are the boys' home locker room pictures. They're going to do painting next week in both of these areas, so they're going to be all the same color. There's not going to be different colors there. So they're going to get that moving this week. The TMS concession stand, it's going to be pretty ready to go. The issue is going to be the roll-up door is on back order. We may have to do that, or we may have to wait till we move into that because of the back order. But hopefully it'll be a Christmas miracle and it'll come in. And this is the TMS middle school home locker room. I could not get into the girls' locker room. You will notice these guys are all eating. Unfortunately, I came right at lunch. But they are working very hard. Honestly, the trades have been working 6 days a week, and they've been working overtime just to get this project done. So we're very appreciative of that and appreciative of their work. These are the PE offices and referee changing areas. The side beyond that door is a shower restroom for our referees, and then this is the TMS hospitality space / team space that we'll be using for our kids, and then this is the athletic storage, which looks gigantor there, but I'm sure will fill up quickly. Also, just wanted to again congratulate some of our students. As the Rising Stars from the Indiana Association of School Principals. Again, congratulations to them. I did want to put a special shout out to our board president who attended EPIC with me, our last EPIC meeting. And EPIC is a superintendent leadership a group that I'm a part of, and I think the sixth cohort, I think that's what they said. So anyway, Jen came along, and this has been the first time that they've offered to have school board members come and talk, and so it was a really great opportunity, a really awesome day, and I wanted to thank her for making the trip down to Greenwood for that. Thank you. And one of the things that has come out of this is really a superintendent advisory meetings, and this is student to superintendent. I think that one of the things that I've missed the most from the position that I do is just interacting with kids. So I'm going to work on that. That's going to be my 24 goal, to try to have on a regular schedule, just kind of meetings with, all grade levels. Just kind of ask them how things are going, how school is, what they like about it, what they don't. And again, just kind of get, and we want to, I want it to be a diverse population. So I've been talking to some people on how they have gone about selecting these students. And again, I just feel like this is something that I need to do, and I think it'll be a great opportunity for me to do some learning with our kids. And also, one of the things that was recommended when we went to EPIC was encouraging board members at a board meeting to just tell us something good. Tell us something good that you witnessed in our schools, or that you read, or that you again, just making sure that we are really sending out that good news about what's happening in our schools, but very much along those same lines as Public School Matters. Again, we have to be the ones talking about the great things happening. Okay, so that's something that I would really love to do starting in January. And then I have a dancing Santa.
We could probably start that tonight because you let an opportunity pass. Are you
Okay.
going to talk about the guest conductor and trombone player?
Well, I was not.
Were you going to mention that or not?
I was not, but it was sure a lot
I have
of fun.
video. If anybody is interested in that. So
Yes.
I would tell you something good is it's been a long time since I've seen a principal or a superintendent jump into the mix, not only play an instrument, but take over from Mrs. Wallen and conduct the whole thing. And of those 2 nights, it was one of my favorite things to see because you could tell you'd done that before. That wasn't your first rodeo. And then I think the kids were a little, nothing against Mrs. Wallen, but there was a little more pep in that music that you were involved in. So I just thought that was great. And more of those types of things I think are needed, that you're in the middle with them and in their space. It was really cool to see. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank
that
you.
was very cool.
Thank you for mentioning
Now you can go to the dancing stand.
it.
Good for that. Is Scott?
Yeah.
Yep.
Do I need to relinquish the screen?
While you're doing something, I would mention that something good is that some of those attendance reports. So go ahead and
Yeah, we're gonna
let us know about them.
we're gonna keep the positive vibes going here
Good.
as soon as this assuming technology behaves. There we go. Fantastic. Okay. So like Dr. Glaze mentioned a little bit earlier, attendance is a positive note, and so I want to provide a little bit more clarity behind that. Apologies, again, it's in Google Doc form. Normally I'd prefer this in a presentation, but just didn't get around to that this time. So let me give you a little background on what you're looking at right now, and then we'll talk about the implications of that. So we've been tracking data pretty close to this year. We have data, attendance data as one of our goals this year. Our goal, again, as a district is 70% of our students will attend 94% of the school year or more. Again, that's above where we were last year. And again, it's one of the things. It's sort of an ambitious goal because again, you wouldn't think attendance is that difficult, but when you look across the state, across the country, again, I've shared this with you before. Last year, 20% of the students in Indiana, so 1 in 5 students across the state, were considered chronically absent. That means they're missing 10% or more of the school year, right? That's 18 days or more of the year those kids are out and not getting instruction. And across the country, it's 25%. So attendance is an issue across the entire nation here. So we wanted to make that kind of a point here at Tipton. And so when you're looking at the data on the screen here, the numbers on the left that are not in parentheses, that's our percent attendance as of December 1st. The one in parentheses was our attendance percentage as of October 1st. So when you're looking at that first column, percent of students at or above 94% in attendance. Again, that was the goal that we set for ourselves. And we wanted to set a goal of 70% or more of our kids are going to reach that goal. Back in October, we were at 74.7%. Currently as of December 1st, I should say, we're at 69.7%. So just hovering below that goal as a district. Again, we could sit here and discuss why this or why that all day. And I don't want to get too much into the weeds with that, but I will have you notice again that we've gone down since October. Now, you might be wondering, that sounds not as positive as we would like, but I want to keep in mind that we are entering that flu season. We're entering that season where illness happens. And so we recognize that kids are going to miss school. There's really not a lot we can do about that. There's no magic wand to make it 100% attendance for everybody. It's just not going to happen. However, there are certain things that we can control, at least impact to an extent. And that's actually the charge we really pressed on our administration this year. And believe me, I'm not the one making those phone calls home, but they are, and I know how much of a task that is. That is not something easy, especially on their busy days. And so to make time to communicate with our families, that was the way we were going to try to impact student attendance is, hey, let's make sure that we're communicating with these families, letting them know, hey, we know your kid's not here, we care they're not here, and we want to see what we can do to help you get them to stay in school. And so when you look at the column on the right where it says percentage of students under 90% in attendance, all right? So those are kids who are missing 10% or more of the school year thus far. Again, these numbers are going to fluctuate as we get more days in and kids attend more days or attend less days. Those numbers will ebb and flow. So for example, again, here, If you're missing 10% more of the days by December 1st, that means they're missing 8 or more days. So what that means is that as kids are going through and they hit that 5-day mark, that's what the left column is. They're missing 5 days or more. We got a lot of kids who are hitting that 5-day mark. The numbers on the right over here in that right-hand column, where you saw in October, for example, Tipton Elementary, they're at 16% kids were below that 9%. Now in December 1st, it's down to 13% of kids. Less kids are missing more school. So what this data is telling me more than anything else is that, yes, we are still getting kids hitting that 5-day mark. That's going to happen. But what's really fascinating is that after they hit that 5-day mark, it's not growing very much, right? They are not continuing to miss a bunch of school days. And while there's a lot of factors that go into attendance, I'm not going to sit here and say this is the one thing that's the only thing that matters. I do like to believe that the effort that our administration are putting in, and obviously our staff and our families, to get kids here in school is exemplified no clearer than that data. The fact that the whole left column is, it's decreasing. We're still having kids miss school, but the kids who are getting that intervention, they're getting that contact home, we're seeing less of those kids miss school. That is a huge accomplishment, in my opinion. Again, I don't think there's much more that I can say that the data doesn't. It's pretty fantastic. And then when you want to, again, Dr. Glaze asked me to take a look at this. If you want to compare us right now as of December 1st of 2023 compared to this time last year, again, similar. The number outside the parentheses in black there is where we were at last year. The one in green is where we are this year. Again, the number of students attending school 90% of the time, 94% of the time or more is higher now across the board than it was this time last year. The number of students who are missing more than 10% of this in attendance over the course of the first 4 months there, again, that's decreased. In some cases, it's been cut in half. So we are seeing significant improvement in our attendance. And again, I find it hard to believe that it doesn't have at least something to do with the amount of effort and focus we put on attendance this year. So again, I want to give all kudos to our administration, obviously our staff and our families for making this a point of emphasis and having those conversations and moving the needle literally for getting our kids back into school. It's fantastic to see. Do you guys have any questions or anything follow-up that you want me to kind of look into further?
On attendance or on your report?
Attendance, and then we can talk more about my report if you like.
No, this is great.
Okay, awesome. Duck out of this then. Not what I wanted to do. There we go. Fantastic.
Okay. All right, moving on to just in our agenda. Next, we received our department reports in our packet. Did anyone have any questions? Okay.
So
Yes, go ahead.
That would be
Yeah.
the superintendent. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I wanted some clarity on what you reported on the multilingual learners, which I never knew anything about that. So thank you for including that because that was fascinating. So I had a couple questions, just like a morbid curiosity more
Okay.
than anything, right? Like how many of these multilingual learners do we have and do we know where they are by building is my first question.
So as far as off the top of my head, I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I will say that population is increasing. And again, Michelle Dunham and Diane Spears kind of lead our multilingual department that, again, they work with students in the elementary, the middle school, and high school. They certainly have their hands full this year.
Okay. And then I think it was more for educational purposes, but you had mentioned something about like a silent period where they don't speak at all, but they're in the building. Do we have that occurring where there's like somebody doesn't speak all day, and they're here?
That happens initially in like
Okay.
probably the first I forget exactly what she described. I think it was the first at least the first few weeks where it's a lot to take
Right.
in, right? I mean, you
Sure.
have this whole new language that you're immersed in, and it's kind of a sink or swim type feeling. But then over time, they start adapting, assimilating some of that language. And actually, I was having a conversation with Senior Henderson earlier this year about that specifically because we've had specifically that come to mind a lot of students who moved into our high school who are multilingual language learners, and we have a handful in our elementary that have been growing. And the students in our high school, he made note to me that, after just a couple weeks, he's like, I'm starting to hear them have conversations in the hallway right outside my classroom door with our students. And they're just, again, it's informal conversation. It's not like, as Ms. Dunham mentioned here, it's not your academic language, which takes the longest to assimilate, but it's that, they're able to walk in the building and not feel like completely out of place because they can have a conversation informally with another student. And again, we've got a couple of, or at least one of our high school students who goes down to the elementary and works with Michelle Dunham and Diane Spears with some of our elementary students to kind of work with translating and working with those students. So again, we're kind of drinking out of a fire hose when it comes to trying to support these students because we have a pretty large influx coming in and compared to the resources we have. And so we tried to talk about some sustainable ways to support those students while also providing opportunities for our high school students. And that has been worked out really well so far.
So you answered my next question. Is there the sustainability of that? If we're
Correct.
seeing the numbers go this way and the resources are staying that way.
Correct.
From
So
a board's
we
perspective, what do we need to be looking at as we go into next year to?
Yeah, I mean, we've had to get a little creative with the solutions. I don't know if Dr. Glaze has anything additional to add to this, but I would say that we feel like with some of our students in particular at the high school, I know the one who's currently working, it has been a great opportunity for him. He has embraced it wholeheartedly. And that's something that if we have more of these students coming up and we can develop them with some of our older students, eventually they become those older students and they can give back just like was given to them. And so that's kind of my kind of vision of how this can be sustainable without looking outward towards outward funding. I don't know if there's anything additional that we have.
I don't want to hijack the meeting.
Oh, no,
we're
no,
on
you're
it.
good.
I mean, when
You're good.
somebody's looking at,
You're
like,
good.
I looked at that 62%, I'm like,
Yes.
okay, we don't have enough people to do what
Right.
we used to have. What
Exactly.
are we? Okay. All right.
And we do have an open position for a para educator for ML,
Just not.
and we can't get people. But we desperately need that position because there is a definite need. So.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Currently, I know Sam Hummerkow sits with them at lunch to practice his Duolingo. So you can also put that in as part of our great efforts from our personal community. Okay. Okay, next we have the financial report from Brooke. Thank you, Brooke, for putting all that together.
Yes, for November, we ended the month in the education fund with $718,013, $241,215 in operations, $836,071 in the debt service fund. Our revenues in the education fund were just over $935,000, $43,302 of that was from our summer school reimbursement. It's hard to believe it takes that long to receive it, but
Yeah,
it
no
does.
kidding.
And then we are, of course, anxiously awaiting our numbers on the curricular material reimbursement. So the DOE says they're going to be paying that out this month. So, and I'm in contact with the county regarding our December property tax and miscellaneous revenue check to see when we can get that picked up. And usually at the end of the year, we're having to request additional appropriation to make it through the end of the year. Well, looking at the numbers, we didn't have to do it this year, so no need to go through that formal process. And our year-to-date interest is $395,705. And by the end of the year, I'll be restoring those rainy day funds and the 2023 GO funds that's covered the construction negative. So that'll all be wrapped up by year end and back to its original fund. And then waiting on our construction documents, we closed on those two new projects, and then we'll get that uploaded in Gateway. And before I came over, DLGF sent our 1782 notice, which to me is kind of premature, but that's okay. I'm emailing with her to tell her that we're trying to get those documents loaded so she can look at those. Okay.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Okay, next on our agenda is old business. There is not any, so we'll move on to new business. Tonight, we need to approve the transfer of appropriations to close out the 2023 budget. In order to close out that budget, all major budget accounts must not show a deficit. Intra-fund transfers of appropriations allow schools to transfer surplus appropriations to accounts needing additional appropriation. It is recommended that the board approve the transfer of appropriations to close the 2023 budget. A summary will be made available to the board at the January meeting. Need a motion and a second to approve the transfer.
I move to approve the transfer of appropriations to close out the 2023 budget.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we need to approve the resolution regarding the 1003 flexibility waiver. The approval of this resolution is necessary in order to submit our 1003 waiver to the Department of Education to allow us to use 3 days for professional development in the 2024-2025 school year. Need a motion and a second?
Make a motion to approve the resolution on the 1003 flexibility waiver for the 24 and 25 school year.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, next is we need, yes, we are looking to approve or change the board policy 9270, allowing homeschool students to participate in extracurricular and co-curricular activities. Over the past few weeks, the board has sought information regarding a policy change allowing homeschool students to participate in co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Our next step would be to approve a policy change. If the board approves of change, then we will have the first reading of the new policy that is in your packet. We would need a motion to change Tipton Community School Corporation's policy for homeschool student participation in co-curricular and extracurricular activities. A yes vote is to change the policy, and no vote is to keep the policy the same. Do I have a motion and a second to consider this change?
I move to consider the change to board policy 9270, allowing homeschool students to participate in extracurricular.
I'll second that.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay. Aye. Yes, ma'am. Okay, next, other matters to come before the board. Does anyone have anything? Okay. Our next advisory committee meeting will be the Branding and Public Relations on December 18th. And then in our schedule of events on December 14th, we have the All Pro Dads meeting at 6:45. Our last day of the second 9 weeks in first semester is on December 20th. And on December 21st, Christmas break begins. Our students return on January 3rd. And our next monthly board meeting is on January 9th. And then there will be no school on January 15th for Martin Luther King Day. Okay, next I need a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for coming.